Anyone who thinks gardening begins in the spring and ends in autumn is missing the best part of the whole year, for gardening begins in January with a dream. January is when my garden sleeps, but my mind races. I am busy planning out my garden, so in a few short months, this snowy winter garden turns into this gorgeous green, fruitful jungle. 99% of that beautiful garden that we just walked through was started right here in my basement in this grow station in the very cold winter and early spring months. If you're dreaming of planting your garden by seed this year, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I do it and everything that you need to have successful, healthy, thriving plants to move out into your garden. The first thing, obviously, that you need to have to start your seeds is space to do so. I am very blessed that I have a basement and I have room to set up a fairly large grow station to start every single thing that I need for my garden, as well as start plants from my parents and several friends and neighbors. But you don't have to have somewhere this big. A little corner in your house, anywhere that you can stick a shelf with some lights will be the perfect place. Now it needs to be temperature controlled. These plants, especially if you're going to be starting tomatoes and peppers, need an area that is fairly warm. My basement is consistently about 55 degrees. That is warm enough. If you start them in your house and you're consistently 65, 70 degrees, that is perfect as well. But it needs to be, somewhere that's not like in a shed or in a unheated garage. You have to have some warmth to this area to make sure that your seeds germinate and your plants grow and thrive. I would definitely say the most important next step is your lights. Now, you can purchase very expensive grow lights. I don't have those. When I started this setup, I was working on a very small budget. You can see up here, these are just shop lights and they grew my plants just fine. And I still use them, even though I have upgraded a little bit. These shop lights grow just as healthy plants as all of the rest of the lights that I have in this system. I do prefer to use, though, just for ease of raising and lowering and turning on and off, these Barina T5 LED strip lights. I purchased these on Amazon. They are not considered grow lights. They're actually considered a shop light as well. But they work perfectly to start my plants down here. They're inexpensive, they're really lightweight, they're easy to hang so that you can maneuver them up and down depending on how big your plants are getting, and they're small so they don't take up a ton of room. My husband just added these strip lights onto wooden strips. They have little connectors. You can see that they are just held on by. These are 4-foot lights. And we have the same thing at the other end. And then we just, this is super basic. We just have a screw up there that we hang them on from. And then we have an S-hook so we can raise and lower these lights. This is a super basic setup and it works great. You can see I have several more. Now, I don't have all of these hung yet. We are in the process of getting this grow station going. I actually bought these shelves for my canning jars on a Black Friday sale, but when I started loading them up, I did not feel like they were stable enough, and so my husband said, why don't you extend your grow station? Of course, I jumped right on that because if you know me, you know that I love filling this place up with as many plants as I can get on here, and I was really overloaded before, so it's going to be so nice to have this extra space this year. We chose to do the exact same thing. So we just fastened these lights onto a strip of wood, and then we need to get chains still, but we will just secure them and then hang them with S-hooks. That is the best way that I have found to be able to raise and lower your lights. The next thing you're going to want to think about is what you're going to plant your seedlings in. There are endless choices and possibilities here, ranging from completely free. So you could use solo cups, or you could use yogurt cups, or you could use sour cream containers. Like anything that will hold soil will work. Now, you have to keep in mind that you have to be able to have water drain through it. So if you use a solo cup or something that previously had food in it, you do need to put holes in the bottom of those, and they work perfectly fine. I tend to purchase these from a local farm store, and I really like to use them. They work awesome for me. They're super inexpensive. They are just that really cheap, flexible junk plastic. And I don't usually use these for more than 1 year, but they are a perfect size for getting things started, like broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage. And if you want to early start some lettuce, those types of things, these are the great size for that. I also really love these. I got them on Amazon. They are just a small, I think it was like, I feel like it called them a 3-inch pot, but they were actually 2.5 inches. They are a good size when you start up potting, and they are reusable. You can tell that this is a flexible plastic, but it's very durable, and I like these a lot as well. And then once you have to move up from these because your plants are getting too big, I love these containers. These are from Bootstrap Farmer. Again, they're that solid, durable, flexible plastic. They have some nice holes on the bottom. You can put your finger through and push your plant out of there when you're ready. You can tell these are dirty. I have not washed them yet for the year, but I just got these last year, but I'm going to be reusing them year after year after year. And if you take good care of them, I have a feeling that they're going to last a very long time. Like I said, do you need this though? Absolutely not. And honestly, I don't recommend investing in something like this if you are a beginner, because everybody who starts seed starting does not love it. So try it out. Make sure that it's your thing before you put a lot of money into it. Go the free way. Sour cream tubs, cottage cheese tubs, anything that has some size to it. So like I said, if you are starting seedlings, you just need something small. They're not going to have a ton of root system. You don't want to have to keep a huge amount of soil wet because that can cause problems all on its own. So starting out, go with something small, and then you can move into larger pots as you need to. Now, like I showed you, these pots have holes on the bottom, so they need to sit in something. I have used everything that you can think of, from baking sheets to glass baking pans to clear domes. So whatever I could get my hands on that would hold a whole bunch of these work just fine. Now, I will tell you, if you're growing a large amount of plants, this is not ideal, especially if you're going to be bottom watering, which is what I do. This is just one of those cheap, it's a dome from one of those cheap containers from Walmart. These are the Walmart ones. They are that thin, flexible, kind of junky plastic, although I have gotten several years of use out of these now. The reason that they're not ideal if you're starting a large amount of plants. Now, if you're starting 1 or 2 trays of these, use this. Don't invest a lot of money. But if you're going to have 30 to 50 trays, go with something heavier and more solid, because you're going to be moving your plants around as they get bigger. And then as it's time to harden them, you're going to have to take them outside. And then if a big rain comes or a windy day comes or the weather changes unexpectedly, you're going to have to move these back down to your basement. As you can imagine, this loaded up with tons of plants is heavy, and it starts to really flex that plastic, and you risk losing your plants. That is why I prefer to use these trays from Bootstrap Farmer. I absolutely love them. So these are Bootstrap Farmer's 1020 trays. These are a hard plastic. They're not flexible. They're going to hold the weight of a lot of plants without dumping or creasing in the middle or breaking. And if you like your garden to be fun, they come in tons of different colors. Is something like this necessary? Absolutely not. But if you're a seasoned grower, having something like this that is sturdy and it's going to last for years
is such a luxury, and I am personally so glad that this is something that I invested in for my grow station. I showed you this clear plastic dome as something that before I had invested in these nice 10-20 trays that I would put my plants into bottom water. But what the actual use of these are is that they are a clear dome. Once you start your seeds, you put this on top and it keeps the humidity in there and it keeps it a little extra warm to help those seeds germinate. These are super handy to have for seeds like tomatoes and peppers and some flower varieties that really need that little bit of extra heat and extra moisture. Not necessary so much though for plants like broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage and kale who don't need that extra heat. Honestly, I pretty much use it across the board on all of my plants, but if you only had one or two, I would save those for your tomatoes and peppers. Again, is this necessary? No, you could instead cover this with plastic wrap. I have seen people do that. I've never personally tried it, but it would hold that heat and moisture in just the same. The only thing it wouldn't do is give you that little bit of extra rise to increase that heat in there. You do not keep this dome on the whole growing season though. As soon as you see that 80 to 90% of your plants have sprouted, take this off so you don't have any mold issues. All right, we were just talking about how some plants need a little bit of extra heat to germinate, and that is where a heat mat comes in handy. These are so nice to use when trying to germinate things like peppers and tomatoes, warm season crops, or anything that you want to germinate really quickly. This gives a several day jump on a lot of your seeds. Again, I keep saying this. Is it necessary? No. You could just put your seedlings in a warm place to start with, like on top of your refrigerator or beside a vent in your home. Obviously, if you're starting a large amount of seeds, something like that doesn't work. And that is when these come in really handy, but not necessary at all. I've also seen people use things like heating pads. These are inexpensive though. They're only going to raise the temperature by just a few degrees, and that few degrees really makes all the difference. So are they necessary? No. Are they super useful though? Yes. This probably goes without saying, but you obviously need soil and seeds. So I just showed you two types of soil. If you're wanting to start your seeds now, this is probably what you're going to find in your stores. It works fine. I've used it many times. I have no issues using this. But if you plan ahead a little bit, this is my favorite soil to use. I'm not going to hold though because it's heavy. That is a ProMix organic garden soil mix. I say soil mix, it's actually not. It's a garden mix. It has no soil in it at all. Its ingredients are peat moss, coconut coir, perlite, limestone, what they call a wetting agent, and mycorrhizae. Also, I had no idea if I said that last one right. Or even what it's for. I'm gonna have to Google that. But it is a compressed soil. So that one bag is 40 pounds and it does a lot of seed starting for me. I like to empty that into just a big plastic tub, break it all up because it is compressed, and then so I can just easily scoop out of there. Now this soil is, although it does have a wetting agent in there, it is extremely dry and it's repellent to water in the beginning. So what I like to do is fill up this seed starting tray with that, I'm just gonna call it soil for lack of better words. I'm gonna fill it with that soil, and then I'm gonna make sure it's compressed pretty good, and then I'm gonna get it wet before I start any seeds in here, because if you put your seeds in here into that dry soil and then you try and get it wet, what's gonna happen is the water's gonna pool up on the top, it's gonna move your seeds around, and it's gonna take a long time to really soak and absorb into that soil medium. So I like to get it wet first. But for ease, I'm gonna use this little bag today because it needs used up as well. This seed starting mix is the exact same way though. Super dry, super light, and super fluffy. So I'm gonna get this tray completely filled and get it wet, and then we'll be back. This is nice and wet now. You can see that that water is not absorbed though. So we're gonna let this set for about 10 minutes and let that water really leach in and make that soil mixture moist. While we're waiting on that soil, I'm gonna show you what seeds I decided to purchase this year. Now I have shown you how big my seed stock is, so I did not go crazy this year. I give myself a very strict budget, and although I did go over it just a tiny bit, mostly because of shipping, I felt pretty good about what I purchased this year. So we're gonna start off with what I got from Baker Creek. If you've ordered from Baker Creek before, you know that you'll get a free seed packet. In mine were these Danvers half-long carrots. I went with Aleppo pepper. This is a spicy pepper, and I chose this one because I want to really learn about fermenting this year, and I have seen a lot of recipes for fermented hot sauce using this Aleppo pepper. I went with these giant rattle poppies. I have never grown poppy flowers before. In the house that I lived at before this one, there were some that were growing there, and they were so beautiful, but I'm not growing these for their beauty. Actually, Bree Ellis, her garden inspired me to grow these. I will make sure and tag her in the description below so you can go check out her channel if you haven't seen it before. But she grew these last year, and then she harvested the seed and used them to make lemon poppy seed muffins and breads and that type of thing. And I thought this would be such a cool project for my kids. And also, I just really like to throw interesting and different things into my garden, and so this made the list this year. I am going with this Ayote green flesh squash. Number one, it's just really cool looking, and like I said, I like to add stuff like that into my garden. But number two, it is part of the Cucurbita moscata family, which if you have a problem with squash vine borers, this is the type of plant to grow. So these are what my Zucchino rampicante are, my butternut squash, and now these. They are just a little bit more resistant to those squash vine borers, and they don't destroy the plants immediately like they typically do with my squash and my zucchini and my delicata and those types of things. And then I chose this bell pepper. Again, I'm gonna butcher that name, Du d'Espagne. I have no idea. Sounds like something French and Spanishy, but it is a giant bell pepper, super sweet, super crunchy, super thick-walled. I've never grown it before, but it had excellent reviews, and I'm looking forward to having this pepper in my garden. They also give you free seed, and I got a lettuce mesclun mix. The first thing I ordered from there was this Truchas red mini romaine lettuce. I just thought these were so pretty, and I really like to add color into my garden, and this is a perfect way to do so. This year, I've told you I'm really going to be putting a lot more focus on determinate Roma style tomatoes. And so we're going to go in with some of these Supremos. I hope by doing this, I'm going to have a higher quality sauce because that's what I make a huge amount of my tomatoes into. As well as this year, I'm going to need to make some more barbecue sauce. And if you use a Roma style tomato, you're going to have a lot less water to cook down. Hale's Best Jumbo Cantaloupe. I have grown these before and had beautiful vines, but like I said, I have a problem with squash vine borer, and so I never got a cantaloupe. I'm going to try these again this year, though. I feel like last year I did have a problem still with squash vine borer. They took out my spaghetti squash, but I had less of a problem than I typically do, so I'm going to try these out, keep my fingers crossed, and pray that I get some cantaloupe. These are my oldest daughter's favorite fruit, and so I would really love for her to be able to go out to the garden and just pick a snack. And then this is something else that I grew last year, and I wish that I would have saved seeds from, but I didn't because I grew these in the midst of several other jalapeno plants, and I figured there was probably some cross-contamination and cross-pollination going on there. So I decided just to purchase some new seeds, and this year I will be growing them on their own so I can save seeds and not have to purchase again. But these are the Megatron jalapenos from Botanical Interest. These are huge jalapenos. They're slightly spicy, but not overwhelming, and they're excellent for stuffing and grilling. The last seed order I put in was Roar seeds. If you were with me last year, you know that I had a terrible cucumber year. Cucumber beetles are my nemesis in my garden. They are a horrible struggle, but I'm not giving up. Last year I used pretty much all of my cucumber seeds, so I had to do a restock this year. I started out with these F1 hybrid. These are just pickling cucumbers. Some straight 8s. These are more of like a fresh eating cucumber. And then I also decided to try some collards. I have never grown collard greens before. Actually, I'm not even sure if I've ever eaten them. I've tasted them. My mom likes to make them, and I didn't love them. But I know they're super great for you, and I feel like I could probably cook these up in a way that I would enjoy, and so I wanted to try growing them this year. I also found this baby doll hybrid watermelon. It's a yellow-skinned, like lunchbox size. Not yellow skin, yellow flesh lunchbox size watermelon. I just thought they were super cute. Again, I love adding interesting different things into my garden, and so I'm super excited to grow this year. If you were with me last year, you know my love for a dark tomato, and so I decided to add these indigo apple ones to the garden this year. Look how beautiful those are. These are very similar to some that I grew last year, but I was out of seeds for those, and so I decided to go with this variety and see how it does for us. These are from High Mowing Organic, but I did purchase them from the Roar website. They sell a few different vendors. I'm also going with some of this purple Ruffles basil. I have grown dark opal basil before, which looks very similar to this, and I'm assuming probably has a similar flavor. I make a ton of sauce and pesto, and I just like to incorporate a lot of basil into my garden for bouquets and for pollinators and for pest repellent. I wanted to try a few hybrids in my garden this year as far as tomatoes go. Typically, in the past, I have grown straight heirlooms. Now, hybrids are not genetically modified or anything like that. Those won't ever have a part in my garden, but hybrids will. These are just bred to have specific characteristics, and I'm excited to add this Rampano hybrid. That's not how you say it. Ramapo hybrid into my garden this year. It is just a typical red tomato, but it's supposed to have a super great flavor and put on a ton of fruit. The last tomato that I ordered in the last seed packet that I ordered this year, like I said, I'm focusing on Romas, are these Roma sauce tomato Pompeii. They are from Renee's garden, but also I ordered them from Roar Seeds. They are an F1 hybrid, and I'm hoping to get a huge amount of tomatoes from this seed packet. And now, after all of that talking, our water has soaked into our soil, so let's get a little bit of early season planting done. Now, we're absolutely not going to be starting tomatoes or peppers or anything like that right now. We're still like, I think 13-ish weeks away from our last average frost. Now is the time to be starting your cold crops: broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, maybe kale, things that are going to be able to withstand a freeze. I like to start these now and then move them out to my garden about 6 weeks before our last average frost. I'm also going to be starting some garlic chives today and my snapdragons because they are a cool weather flower. Last year was my first year growing them, and I had beautiful flowers, but I didn't get them quite out early enough to get these really tall, beautiful stalks. So I am trying again, and fingers crossed that I have the prettiest snapdragons I've ever grown. If you remember last year, I did not label my broccoli very good, and I had some phenomenal broccoli heads that I want to make sure and get again this year, but I don't know which varieties those were. So I am starting a little bit of everything of all of my varieties of broccoli, and I'm going to be sure to label them so I know which ones are my great producers. I'm going to go in with the Bell Star, Gypsy, Romanesco, Calabrese, Purple Peacock. I know this is not one of them last year. This and Butterstem, which I'm also growing, are more of a sprouting broccoli instead of like a heading broccoli. Butterstem, Waltham 29, and Miranda. So broccoli seeds are tiny. Broccoli seeds are very tiny, so you want to make sure and very, very lightly cover them with soil. The rule for planting seeds is to plant it twice as deep as the seed is. So I don't know if you can see, that is 6 seeds in my hand right there. They are little bitty. I have tried to grow this Romanesco broccoli. This will be my 3rd year and I have never gotten ahead on it. It is so cool looking though. Like, take a second look at how beautiful that is. So I'm super hoping that by starting it a little bit early this year, I will get a big, beautiful head. I'm going in about a week and a half earlier than I did last year. Like I said, last year was an amazing broccoli and cauliflower year for me. So I'm hoping that I will be able to reproduce that, but also get ahead from some of these that take a little bit longer in the season. Our springs here are super unpredictable. Sometimes we have a nice spring, which we did last year, and sometimes we go straight from like cold winter weather straight into 80 degrees. And brassicas, which are the broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts, those type of plants do not tolerate heat for the most part. And so when that happens, you don't get a good harvest. A lot of times your plants will bolt and go straight to flower. So it's completely up to God whether or not we get a nice harvest. But also, you know, you can do some of the work yourself and make sure you get your seeds started on time or even a little bit early. Have big, healthy, thriving plants and make sure and keep them fertilized, well watered, those types of things. I will make sure to bring you along with these plants as we tend them, and then as they start to get bigger, we will move them up into bigger pots, and as we harden them off, you're going to see these from seed all the way until harvest if you make sure to subscribe and keep watching with us here. I do try just to put 2 seeds in each hole. I don't want to waste seeds, and typically as long as you have good seeds that aren't super old, you're going to have really great germination. Like I said, I like to dome everything. These do not need lights on yet, but the moment that they sprout, they do need lights. So I personally will turn them off today, but I'll turn them off, turn them back on tomorrow, because for broccoli, I usually have sprouts within 2 to 3 days. They germinate really quickly, and I want to make sure that as soon as those leaves emerge, that they are lit so that they don't start stretching, looking for light and get really tall and spindly, and then they fall over and you don't end up with a good product. We also today are going to start garlic chives. Now I'm going to show you how to do these because it's different than we did the broccoli. Today I'm also starting cauliflower, cabbage, and kale. They're going to be the exact same steps as the broccoli, but chives are going to be a little bit different. I'm going to start them in one of my taller containers because they're going to live out their lifespan in this plant until they are ready to go into the garden. They're not something that you have to continuously upplant like you do these other things. I'm going to get this filled with soil, get it wet, and then I will show you what to do. All right, this is nice and wet. Now we are going to take our chive seeds and just sprinkle them fairly heavily on top of this soil mixture. Pat them in really well, but you don't need to worry about actually covering the seeds, and they will sprout, and then we will just let them grow here until we're 4 to 6 weeks from our average last frost, and then we will move them out to the garden. Garlic chives are a perennial, so they're something that's going to come back for us year after year after year. If you are starting onion seeds, you want to do that at this time as well in your garden. Now, some people do it how I'm doing these garlic chives where you just sprinkle it. That's how I did it last year. It worked great. Some people individually seed out their onions so you can move that whole onion plant into the garden. I personally am going to take the easy route and get my onion plants from Dixondale Seeds. They're one of the only things that I purchase plant-wise for my garden, but I have the best luck with them. My onions last year were incredible, and they were the year before as well, and they will be every year here on after, because Dixondale is the place to get your onion plants from. All right, so the top of that is covered with those tiny little black onion seeds. I'm just going to pat them down really well into my dirt. Kind of rub it around a little bit so they have some good contact there. Put it in your tray so it doesn't leak that water everywhere, and that's it. They're good to go. They don't need to be heated. You can cover them if you want to. I'm not going to, because there's one plant on here, so I'm not going to worry about a clear plastic cover. I'm going to leave them just like this, and in, what are we, 12 weeks away, so 6 weeks, this is going to go out straight into my garden to be planted. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in my grow station today. I would absolutely love it if you subscribed, leave me a comment, and make sure that you're here for the journey of the 2025 garden season. I will see you back on Monday morning with the week of cooking from our 3 Rivers Pantry Challenge. But until then, may God bless.